Back in 1546 in Iquitos, near Quito, Spanish Peru, something happened that would change everything. A royal viceroy, sent to enforce reform from the Spanish crown, rode into a trap of bullets and betrayal, and died on the field. That violent moment was the apex of a conspiracy that began in the gilded chaos of conquest and threatened to rip the Spanish Empire in South America apart. To understand the plot, we must go back to the new laws of 1542. Charles V, alarmed by reports of abuse and the collapse of indigenous populations under the Encomienda system, ordered sweeping reforms, limits on the inheritance of encomiendas, protections for native peoples, and the end of hereditary dominion by conquistador families. For the conquerors who had carved fortunes and power out of Peru's riches, those laws were existential. They bought land and labor with violence. To lose legal inheritance was to lose everything. Blasco Núñez Vela, the king's viceroy, arrived in 1544 to enforce the new laws. He was unbending and uncompromising. He met not gratitude but resistance. Gonzalo Pizarro, brother of Francisco Pizarro and one of the most powerful Encomenderos in the highlands, emerged as the conspirator-in-chief. He and a coalition of settlers, Encomenderos, and disaffected soldiers conspired to keep their privileges. The conspiracy was equal parts self-defense and raw ambition. It promised to preserve property, protect local power structures, and for some, to claim the colony itself. Tensions escalated into open rebellion. Núñez Vela marched north to quell it. But at Iquitos on January 18, 1546, his forces were ambushed. The viceroy's uncompromising enforcement had isolated him politically. Even some of his own officers defected. Núñez Vela was killed in battle, and the rebels celebrated what they believed was a victory over distant royal interference. Gonzalo Pizarro now acted as de facto ruler of Peru, issuing orders, rewarding followers, and consolidating authority. The conspiracy had succeeded, for a moment, in replacing imperial rule with the rule of the conquistadors. But the crown would not let its authority evaporate. Rome and Madrid moved slowly, but inexorably. Rather than send a huge army, Charles V dispatched a diplomat and priest, Pedro de la Gasca, with a masterful mix of politics and law. Gasca's weapon was not only force, but legitimacy. He offered pardons, promised legal redress, and argued that the new laws could be softened if the rebels reconciled with the crown. He appealed to conscience, to greed, and to fear, and he turned the conspiracy's strength into its weakness. Gonzalo's coalition was brittle. The Encomenderos were tied together by common interest, not loyalty. Many resented Pizarro's arrogance and feared the long-term instability of open rebellion. Gasca's conciliatory measures peeled away followers one by one. On April 9, 1548, their confrontation came at Jaquijoana. Outmaneuvered politically and abandoned by once loyal captains, Gonzalo's forces collapsed. The rebellion unraveled. Pizarro was captured days later, tried and executed. The conspirators who survived faced sentences, exile, or the loss of claims they had sought to protect by conspiracy. The aftermath was paradoxical. The crown had defeated a violent conspiracy and reasserted metropolitan authority, but it also learned the limits of abrupt reform in a distant, volatile colony. The new laws were modified, and gradual, negotiated change became the practice. For the indigenous peoples, the outcome was mixed. Some abuses were curbed on paper, but the economic structures that had exploited them largely persisted. For Spain, the episode was a lesson in governance. Even an empire must balance principle with pragmatism. This was not a tale of a single mutiny, but of a conspiracy born of colonial entitlement.